is making a comeback.
Sometimes when you're caught up in chaos, you tend to ask the wrong questions. So here's one that just may help us get to the bottom of all this rioting in America. Is all this civil unrest really a racial problem, or does the U.S. have a police problem? One wonders if videos of all the white and Hispanic folks hit the airways as much as the ones of Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd. Would we be staring at a police rather than a black crisis? Liberty Nation's legal affairs editor Scott Cosenza joins with some new questions and, even better, some solutions. Welcome to Truth TV, Scott.
Thank you, Lisa.
All right, you keep shouting that we have a police problem, not a race problem. How so?
Well, the problems that we see that people are protesting about don't have anything to do with the way blacks and whites interact in society, but how police interact with all of us.
All right, so you mentioned that there is a union problem here. What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that the collective bargaining agreements that police officers operate under are often very much in their favor when it comes to disciplinary processes and their bad acts. And these are often signed off on by municipal leaders because of their kind of in with the unions, and the unions that represent these police officers bargain for an easy process for them. And we don't have a strong bargaining power on the other side. The mayors and the county executives and so forth aren't upholding their end.
All right, but what does this have to do with a guy putting his knee on a guy's throat for 8 minutes or 7 minutes?
Well, that officer, for instance, Lisa, had many prior complaints lodged against him. Now, I don't know if any of those were founded or not, but it's hard for any of us to know, because oftentimes that bargaining that I talked about includes the lack of any kind of meaningful civilian review, for instance, or other consequences that would make a police officer who would be later inclined to have the no humanity, really, for somebody screams like that, to be off the force a lot sooner than they would have otherwise.
Well, you mentioned in your story on LibertyNation.com about the Parkland policeman getting his job back. Is this basically what you're talking about?
That's exactly right, Lisa. And I talk about the rehired with back pay quote. Anybody searches on that term, you will see a staggering number of stories where police officers have engaged in all manner of misconduct, including just outright criminal conduct. But because the way the department handled their dismissal, they didn't dot all their I's and cross all the T's. Some kind of basically a dispute resolution person ruled in their favor, and the courts would back up that ruling because of those union contracts. Again, this is a failure of government.
All right, so in the case of the Parkland guy, he was fired and then hired?
That's right, Lisa. The arbitrator ruled that because the county violated his due process rights under the contract in the way they fired him, that he was entitled to his job back with back pay. Now, that arbitrator didn't say he was a good cop or shouldn't have been fired, just that the way it was done under the terms of the contract, as the county agreed to, meant this result. So it was a failure in good contracting, I think, Lisa.
All right, but you mentioned that labor unions are only part of the problem.
Well, they are. There's qualified immunity, and also I think the drug war is the big issue. We now have as many prisoners in the United States, Lisa, as about the same as in Russia and China put together. Now, we think about what those of us who talk about freedom and revere freedom think of those two regimes and how totalitarian they are. And they have a lot many more people than we do, but we have the same number of prisoners. Well, why is that? That's new. That's not like we always had that since the 17 or 1800s. This is since the drug war has ramped up in the United States. And it's these drug war efforts and the knocking down of our rights that it has gone hand in glove with those efforts that has led us to this incarceration society. And that's about interaction with the police, which is all negative.
Scott, why hasn't anyone connected the dots on the left and right to these possible causes for police brutality?
Well, they're uncomfortable for the policy prescriptions that they mandate in both areas. So for the right, they're often uncomfortable with liberalizing our drug laws, which is absolutely something that would be necessary in order to see that prison population decline. And on the left, you can imagine all those unions that we talked about, those are Democrat, basically, votes that we're talking about. These are the big cities where this is going on. You know, when was the last time a Republican was a mayor of Philadelphia or New York or, in control in Los Angeles? These are Democrat strongholds, and they often just work in lockstep with the police union because of the votes and the political power involved, Leesa.
All right, so if you were to sum up 2 simple solutions to our police problem.
Easy and simple aren't the same thing, so let's recognize that when we talk about it. I would say the first is that we have to, in every instance, try to, anytime somebody wants to pass a law that includes a criminal penalty or the opportunity for another interaction between the police and the citizenry, recognize that it could result in a death because of the way that tension works. Eric Garner was killed because he was selling a cigarette or alleged to have been selling cigarettes without paying the proper tax stamp. So that's the first one. And the second one is, I would say that we need aggressive enforcement of federal civil rights laws against the police. We can't count on all the little towns to do their, all the heavy lifting. And so for anybody who watches, there's a million YouTube videos, Leesa, there that will show you cops shining lights in the cameras of citizen journalists, for instance, or people being detained for recording the police. Right, those people should face federal, and I would say those people, I mean those police officers, Leesa, should face federal prosecution for civil rights violations, and that'll put a quick end, I think, to that kind of activity.
All right, Scott, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Leesa.
That's Scott D. Cosenza, Legal Affairs Editor at LibertyNation.com. Go deeper on the topic discussed in this video, head on over to one of these links here or go to our Liberty Nation Roku channel. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for Liberty.
Truth is making a comeback.